Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AI Powered Woman podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Felicia Newhouse, and founder of the AI Powered Women Conference at MIT. This is where women leaders come to navigate human-centered AI with clarity, with purpose, and with care. Each week, we bring together diverse voices you won't find on a typical tech podcast, exploring how to integrate AI into your work without losing yourself in the process. You'll gain practical skills, fresh perspectives, and a deeper understanding of how to shape technology responsibly so it advances creativity, connection, and collective well-being. So today we're joined by Natalie Monbiot. Welcome, Natalie. It's so nice to
Thanks
have
so
you here.
much.
And
Likewise,
she
great to be
is
here.
founder of Virtual Human Economy and co-creator of one of the first AI avatar companies and a TEDx speaker featured in the Wall Street Journal and MIT Tech Review. So really extraordinary background and would love to hear more about your background. And Natalie, you've talked a lot about really shaping AI with these digital twins and digital counterparts that really amplify human potential. So I'd love to hear a bit about, well, one, your journey and your background, but also how your journey in AI twins has really shaped your perspective that AI can give humans superpowers.
Absolutely. So I won't start from the very beginning because we don't have a lot of time, but I'll start with 2019, when I had just left the corporate world, working with big brands like Samsung and American Express and BMW and all that kind of thing, as a digital executive and innovation leader. And I decided I needed to do something fresh. And long story short, I helped to co-found a company called Hour One back in 2019, which was one of the first AI avatar companies. And this is well before the ChatGPT moment, of course. And AI was a very different beast, and definitely wasn't on the tip of everybody's tongue. But what was really incredible about that moment was that what really captivated me about the technology was the ability to actually capture and not just replicate how a person looked and sounded, but to actually give human beings superpowers, enable them to do things with AI that they couldn't do before. And the most obvious one there was enable human beings to speak languages they don't speak in real life.
Yeah.
And it was incredible to work on some very early enterprise projects, one being with Berlitz, which is a very, established like legacy company, 150-year-old language learning school. Not exactly your first, when you think about the first company to dive into AI, and certainly and not avatars, you wouldn't think them. But they really had a burning business need to be able to scale that platform and scale the ability for their instructors to reach people in different parts of the world more affordably. And so we were able to create these avatars that were based on real instructors and have them speak languages that they didn't speak in real life. And that was magical. It's like, wow, we can actually use AI to give us superpowers. So I actually had a really great, positive lived experience with AI, and I'm still kind of trying to channel that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it really is. When you say superpowers, it's like, I mean, it's becoming somebody who can be in multiple places at once. It allows you to scale yourself. I mean, and like you said, the different languages. So it allows you to even open up the communication to other humans that otherwise you wouldn't have been able to communicate with. So it's really, there's a lot of really interesting use cases. And you've said before virtual humans can kind of quote unquote like carry human value into digital spaces. I'd love to hear a bit more about, I guess, what value means to you. Like when we think about emotional, cultural, even economic, and how we ensure it isn't diluted when our identities become machine readable.
Yeah. So when I talk about kind of the ability to kind of scale and augment your value, I really think about it through the lens of business and through a professional
Mm.
lens. So, so with avatars, what you were able to do, like with the visual aspect of kind of cloning yourself, you were able to clone how you looked, and that had appeal and value for a lot of people in the sense that if you're someone that trades on how they look, right, the ability to actually scale and augment that and be in more places at once and appear in places and in ways that you previously couldn't do, there's value there. Same with your voice. If that's an asset that already is it already is an asset. How can you kind of make more of that asset? I think what gets more interesting is that, and also when we were at Hour One, all of our stock avatars, these were just regular people that thought they would moonlight as an avatar. And based on how they looked, or the fact that they, represented, a person, they would suddenly be able to appear in commercial content that they never dreamed of, like, and earned money while they slept, right? And we're not talking millions here, but it was definitely like, wow, this is a new way to generate income that did not exist before. So again, it's kind of like the kernels of establishing kind of and identifying the kernels of what is possible with AI. And if we kind of build it the right way and we think about how to scale and augment our assets to empower ourselves as individuals, that is really an interesting line of inquiry. And these days I'm more interested actually in, I see avatars and cloning your likeness and how you sound. I see those more as interfaces for where our value professionally, for most of us, probably you and I, and most people listening to this, is in our wisdom and in our acquired knowledge and experience. How do we already trade off that, right? So you have a PhD, we've acquired, all of these experiences, and we have a lot to share in that respect, and we already trade off it. And so how can we actually capture that and augment that and enrich that and create more of a return to us as human beings and individuals? And a lot of that is also to free up time to focus on truly human endeavors and cultivating ourselves as humans, and to kind of ask those challenging questions, which I think AI, you've mentioned that, that you see AI as a mirror, and I'm completely with you. And I think it's a mirror now to help force us to evaluate who we really are and what our true value is. Because, like, if you can already replicate and augment yourself in the sense of the value that you've already created, what new value are you going to be creating, right? So what are you going to do? And I think that's what AI is pushing us to do, is actually probably the most interesting thing about the time that we're in.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that excites me about that the most is this idea of finding our people and our people finding us, right? Like, at the end of the day, businesses, organizations, all of these various institutions and systems are just made up of humans, right? And we want to align with the right people. We want to align with the right energies. So what I love about this is that if these technologies, the avatars, all these various components are actually baked in with the ability to truly be in sync with you and truly be bringing out your most authentic and valuable traits. I mean, it allows you to also find the people that are going to value those, right? So if you're a teacher, if you're a brand, right, you're able to find the people that can be helped by your message, which I think is one of the most exciting parts of that ability to scale yourself out. So
yeah, absolutely. And I also think that it challenges us so yes, we're thinking about kind of creating AIs based on ourselves, but just working with AI in general, just thinking about an organization, and AI can increasingly do a lot of the things that were someone's job, right? So I've been thinking a lot about product managers recently, and the job of a product manager is very much centered around coordination. And when you don't need to do that coordination anymore as a human product manager, what are you going to spend your time doing? How are you going to differentiate yourself? When coordination just becomes, something that agents do, what value, the spotlight's then on you, and you kind of have to sort of rally and think, okay, well, how do I create differentiated value? Who am I? What can I bring? And I think that's where things get really interesting, because, if you have the right mindset and the growth mindset to kind of approach that situation, we can become a lot more creative and resourceful. And that, we don't know what that is that can be created. So it's a lot more nebulous, and it's exciting. We can cooperate with each other. We can wrestle with uncertainty. We can come up with new insights, and we can, co-create what's next. So I think it's really hard. I think AI makes life harder for us, because we actually have to try harder and do the things that actually don't take that much time. Typically, we don't spend that much time doing these things. And actually, it's hard to spend a lot of time wrestling with uncertainty, thinking,
Yeah,
solving
exactly.
problems in new ways. It's like, it's exhausting, but
Yeah.
we're going to have a
It's
lot more
exhausting to
time
be
to
human.
do that. It's exhausting to be human. Exactly. It's like these screens and these kind of like routine things are, they're a crutch, and that is part of being human too,
That's
right? We
right.
can't always be on in that
Yeah.
sense, but I think we're going to have to lean into more of that stuff in order to stay ahead and to make use of AI versus the other way around.
Yeah, totally. I guess when I think about kind of what deepens our capacity to kind of care and grow as humans, like you're saying, I mean, you've talked a lot about this, and I think it was Substack, right? You had a recent article about this of around caring is a superpower for humans. So I'd love to hear a bit more about, I guess, how does caring shift the design of a business from being merely AI enabled to truly human centered? And how can we design AI so that it not only makes us efficient, but also deepens that capacity to care and grow as humans? And I'd love to hear about this, both from the standpoint of you wrote an article about this, but you're also going to be speaking on our panel at the conference in a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks that touches on this as well around, what does it mean to be human centered and to grow a human centered business or even product? So I'd love to hear more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been thinking a lot over the last year or two about what it means to be human in the era of AI, when, AI can blow past us, PhD level or a million PhDs in a data center, like all of these stats and things. And you're like, wait a minute, what's the role of humans? Like, what is human intelligence? Like, what do we bring to the table?
Mhm.
And so I've been kind of delving into various sort of historical sources, cognitive science, kind of create a sense of this. And um, one of these things, like something that's deeply human, is this idea of caring. And this isn't necessarily, I'm not talking about kind of like empathic caring, being kind and that kind of thing. I'm talking about taking care or giving a shit
Mm,
is basically a
more action
very
oriented.
human. It's very sort of like it's something that we have and that motivates us to wrestle with uncertain situations and difficult situations, and motivates us to pursue them nonetheless. And that really is a human trait that has got us to where we are, that is kind of,
Mhm.
been a driving force in the various stages of evolution and progress, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges that we find, and we see research about this all the time, when people use large language models, they actually don't care. They don't pay attention. They don't even have time to consume the output. It just comes out in
Right.
droves.
Exactly.
In the sort of like how you engage with LLMs, actually, like the whole relationship encourages you not to care, right? And in this research from MIT recently, from the MIT Media Lab recently, shows that people don't even have any connection. People who rely on LLMs, especially when they start, in this case, it was writing essays. If they didn't start with their own thoughts, they basically, even if they put their own thought into it later, could not recall or quote anything in what they'd
Mhm.
written.
Yeah, you're
So I mean, that's
bypassing the
literally the
brain
opposite.
processors.
Right. It's literally you buy, but yes, and you've literally and into zero in this idea of caring. It's like that is just like just zero care, right? If you can't even
Mm,
recall or relate to or recall or have any relationship to what you wrote, that that is just lack of care, and it's basically um, encouraging humans not to care. And so anyway, in this post, and this is what I've come to think, is that that's not the fault of AI and the existence of AI. That is the fault of how we engage with AI systems and the interfaces that exist today. And that's, I think, because AI is being built to to optimize for productivity or just getting stuff done and putting stuff out there and getting to the end point and the thing that's right. And and so it doesn't encourage the struggle for meaning, which is
mhm.
what I think would really help humans, right? So like if
Yeah.
we had more time to reinvest in the struggle for meaning because of AI taking care of so many things for us, then we would be able to advance ourselves as a species, right? And so I actually think that if we adapt the interfaces with different goals in mind, then we can actually end up in a very different place. And what does it mean for businesses? I think it means that we need to set ourselves up to create this kind of creative friction, to create the struggle of uncertainty, get people collaborating and sort of co-creating the next thing and determining if something's good or not, and taking advantage of this kind of non-deterministic space that we find ourselves in because we're in these uncharted territories. We should find ourselves in these uncharted territories, and we should accept that and relish that. And this is a women's conference, and I think about, when women leaders step up, or when women leaders are called up, is when there's a crisis to be dealt with and when there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's a real opportunity for women to leverage this moment with AI to kind of step up and actually step into the struggle for uncertainty and to create new meaning in these uncharted waters.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, from your vantage point, how do you think AI or even AI twins could kind of flip the script, I guess, around extending women's agency or ensuring they profit and lead in the virtual human economy? And I mean, I'm even thinking like democratizing leadership by kind of, letting women scale their presence and influence beyond kind of these physical limitations.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we need to own it, right? We need to
Yeah.
own AI and use it to basically scale and augment whatever it is we've already done and got. And we need to use it to create found time to gather and to co-create. And I really do think that these congregating like we will in Boston in a couple of weeks is one of the ways that we do that and get together and inspire each other in real life as humans, and sort of acknowledge the tools that we have now at our disposal to make ideas that weren't possible before happen with minimal lift.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and at our conference, we're kind of exploring this idea of ancestral intelligence, like breath and movement and rhythm and ritual and art and story alongside artificial intelligence. So how do you picture kind of AI evolving to really like support, I guess, not replace those timeless practices and help us continue becoming the best versions of ourselves? Like you kind of alluded to this earlier that, we're at a kind of a moment in history right now where we're being called to be more human, and that's hard. It's hard to be human. It's not always easy. So what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
I also want to sort of address that, but also address the other part to your question earlier about like how can AI twins actually, what role do they have in this space? And
Yeah.
to me, I do actually develop like my day job that I've assigned for myself is actually developing custom AI twins for enterprise leaders to help scale their communication, enable them to communicate one-on-one with hundreds, if not thousands of people in a way that was previously, not possible, to be able to communicate and also receive wisdom in ways that weren't possible. So, but another way of looking at it is like an AI twin can become a like a cognitive, a very smart AI engineer who I speak with a bunch. He talks about AI as a cognitive prosthetic for his, to help compensate for some of the things that he sees as his shortcomings that get in the way of him being better, like in however he determines that. And in his case, he has ADHD. So how can he leverage AI as part of his cognitive toolkit to compensate for some of his weaknesses so that he can double down on his strengths? So I think it's one thing to, leverage AI twins to scale and augment, your assets, but it's also at the same time, you can use them to compensate for things. And also you could look at like language, the ability to speak another language as the inability to do that as a shortcoming, and now you can compensate for that. So obviously there's different ways of looking at it, but I think, how do you augment your assets, your talents, and then also how do you compensate for your weaknesses, would be two ways of looking at that.
Yeah, it's fascinating because in order to use these tools for that type of use case, you still have to do that, courageous reflection work around what are my weak spots and where do I have shortcomings as a leader? And that's not easy work, right? It requires courageousness for you as the person reflecting on yourself and probably leaning on other humans as well to offer up those perspectives. So
That's absolutely right. And it's actually something that we've discovered, in my own work in developing these custom AI twins, uh, and also in advising Wisely, which is a company that develops AI twins specifically for consultants. People just sort of want an AI twin. It's like, well, what is it based on? What is it designed? You still have to do it's actually a lot of soul searching. It's like, who are you? There's like new levels of self-awareness are required. So I think it's a really good thing. If you can make a really effective AI twin, that's probably a good sign of your levels of self-awareness.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I love it. So many interesting things happening at this moment in history that are stretching us to, go outside our comfort zone and evolve. So it's
Absolutely.
going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see where it all goes. All right. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Natalie, for being here. We're so excited to have you on stage in just 2 weeks and to
Yes.
be at the
Thank you.
conference. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Can't wait.
Yay.
Can't wait. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here and listening. And if today's conversation gave you something to think about, share it with another woman leader who's ready to build with more courage, clarity, and heart. Make sure you follow Natalie. She's on LinkedIn, on Substack, lots of wisdom from her. So make sure you follow all the amazing work she's doing. And remember, the way we shape the future isn't by doing it all alone. It's by leading together. Thank you, everybody.